Hey YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. After the last video, I thought that it would be pretty useful to sum up all of the information, how the story ended up ending, and what I learned from this whole process, because oh my gosh, this whole thing has aged me. I don't even know how many years. I'm mentally now, 50 years old from how much I've gone through in just trying to get this house. And so the whole process so far has taught me a lot, and I wanted to just, let you guys know what it taught me. I don't think I had mentioned in the last video that in the end, no, I didn't mention it because things were still not finalized yet. But in the end, what ended up happening is that the first bank that I was talking to directly, which was the same one that at first didn't want to give me a mortgage because I was foreign, but then once I put Enrico's name in the mix, they started to change their tone. I was talking to them at the same time as this new broker. And how it was going to end up going was whoever answered me first, whoever got back to me first with positive news, I was going to go with them because at the time, I thought I would have to pay for the house in February. So in the end, the bank was kind of ghosting us. They were being a bit slow and shady. And so the broker ended up getting back to us first. And, it was a situation where, like I said, I didn't have a lot of other options. I had exhausted all my options. I couldn't go to any new banks. I had already been in touch with about 5 banks, all of the ones which I had some sort of connection to, but there was no way to establish new connections in the middle of COVID where you're not allowed to go inside banks without an appointment, and they're not going to give you an appointment unless you're already a client. I would sit there for hours waiting for somebody to pick up the phone when I would call these banks so that I could try to make an appointment as a non-client, and they never picked up the phone. So I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna have to go to another broker and pray that everything works out. And the reason that I found out about this broker was because he was recommended to me by a friend who also used him. And he seems to be some kind of like magic worker, because even in her case, it should have been impossible for her to get a mortgage, and he was able to get her mortgage. And so she said, try him. And so we talked to him, we met him, and I mean, what I liked about him was he was very upfront. He never told us, that he was going to be able to get the mortgage. He just said, based on my opinion, you should be fine. We're gonna get you this. And he gave me timelines, you guys. I was very happy that he gave me real timelines. He responded to me when I would ask him things. His office would call me regularly to update me on things, ask me about like where this document was, where that document was. And it was like day and night from the first broker. And in fact, after, giving them the documents and everything, we went on February 6th to sign all of the papers, and we were approved by February 25th. That's how fast it went. Like, compare that to the last broker that I don't even know. The first lesson that I learned in this whole thing is that, yes, brokers are sometimes necessary. If you have a case like mine, it was absolutely necessary. And the difference between a good broker can change everything, you guys. If I had known of him from the very beginning, we would have been in the house a year ago. But I tell myself, everything happens for a reason. If I was in the house a year ago, I wouldn't have gotten the house with Enrico. We wouldn't have had the same financial situation that we're in now. It would have probably been a lot more stress. So I'm happy with how things are turning out. And yes, the broker made a huge difference. And yes, I did end up having to go to a broker in the end. Next thing that I learned that would have been pretty useful is the fact that, online banks don't give out mortgages in Italy. I mean, they do, but they don't. For example, my online bank that I've had for years, ING, when I had gone to inquire about mortgages, they told me that they only give mortgages if the down payment is at least 50,000 euros. And that wasn't my case. My case was less than half of that. So I couldn't get a mortgage from my bank. The whole, go ask your bank I couldn't do it because my bank was an online bank. And it's like that for most of them. And it's just good to know in advance, because if you know this in advance, you know that yes, online banks are super convenient, they're super useful, they don't cost anything usually. But if you know that long term you want to get a house one day and you want to ask for a mortgage or really any kind of financing, it would probably be useful to also have a traditional bank account, or at least get a bank that really does both. because limiting myself to just the online bank, I found myself in a really uncomfortable position when it came to asking for a mortgage. If I had had an account at that bank, even the one that told me that they weren't going to give it to me because I was foreign, if I had had an account there for all the years that I've been here and, all of this credit history, I probably would have been able to, talk it out or get some kind of leeway on it. When you have an actual relationship with the banks and when you're an actual client of the bank, you can find leeway and they'll make it work for you. But I didn't have that option because I only had an online bank. So another thing that I learned in this whole process is the pros and the cons of having an online bank. I already kind of touched on it, so I might as well elaborate. Being foreign absolutely has an impact on your access to credit here in Italy. It sounds like a no-brainer, but I don't know. I've been here for almost 10 years. I have a business here. I pay taxes here. I have a degree from here. I speak Italian. I really thought, and I was also led to believe, that at least in my case, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Absolutely it was. Like, straight up, I've seen it all. I saw banks that said that they don't give mortgages to foreigners unless they have a Italian cosigner. I've seen banks that say they don't give more than a certain percentage of loan to foreigners. The specific percentage was 70%. They don't give more than 70% of the mortgage to foreigners, whereas we all know the standard is 80, and of course you shoot for even more. But being a foreigner definitely had an impact. There are lots of banks in Italy that if you're a foreigner, they're not going to give you the mortgage by yourself. And if you're an American, on top of that, for tax reasons, that can complicate your life even more. So be aware, foreigners that want to buy a house in Italy through financing, it's not going to be easy. I always hear people talking about how you should get the best rate and you should find the bank that's going to give you the lowest tax, the lowest interest rate. Honestly speaking, going from bank to bank, I didn't see the interest rate or the monthly mortgage payment that they were asking. I didn't see these big changes from bank to bank. They were all around the same ballpark, given that, the conditions were always the same. We were always putting down the same 20%. We always wanted fixed rate. We always wanted 30 years. And so the monthly rate really didn't change at all. What did change was, whether the bank wanted to ask for obligatory insurances or how much the bank took in terms of their spesa istruttoria or how much their perito cost. Like, these are the things you want to look at. The banks are going to be giving you the same rate, which is the highest rate they can possibly give you when interest rates are essentially zero. Always, always, always read the fine print. Again, this is another one that sounds like a no-brainer, sounds obvious, and I'm thankful that I actually did it, but oh my gosh, I can't tell you guys how many times that actually having read the fine print was able to bring me out of nonsense. For example, with that other broker, it was written in the fine print. There was a clause in there that allowed me to get out of that contract without paying her, given that she didn't do anything. And, if I didn't read the contract, I wouldn't have known that, and who knows how it would have ended up. So always read the fine print. They always say that, and I'm just confirming it. Last thing that I learned is that you have to be annoying. You have to rompere le scatole, as they say in Italian. I don't know why. I really don't, because in real life, I'm not like this. But I found that I was very, despite the fact that I was paying all of these people involved, hesitant to, inquire, ask questions, push for information, because I didn't want to seem too much. I didn't want to seem annoying. I didn't want to seem insistent. I didn't want to seem, listen, none of it freaking matters. You have to be on them all the time, 100% of the time, or nothing is going to get done. You see what happened when I didn't want to be insistent and I just wanted to take everybody's word for everything and I was just waiting? I ended up waiting for a year and nobody did anything. So, going forward, I'm very much more, I'd prefer the word proactive, and I do ask all my questions. I am on them. I'm on them like white on rice. So absolutely don't feel bad about insisting and being insistent. That was probably one of the biggest lessons I learned. So yeah, I think that wraps up in terms of, how the story of the mortgage more or less concluded and everything that I learned from this experience. And I hope that everything that I learned can be a nice heads up for you guys. As I said, something is bound to go wrong anyways. And of course, you're not going to have the same things go wrong that I had go wrong probably, but at least you have a heads up on, what is waiting for you, the kinds of things that could go wrong, and a heads up on certain things to let you know how to maneuver differently. Get yourself a traditional bank account. Understand which banks give loans to foreigners. You gotta be a little bit ahead of the game. But I hope that this video and, this whole series can be helpful to you in doing that. Let me know if you guys found this video informational, and feel free to share your experiences in the comments section down below. Transparency and knowledge gathering is key. As always, be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next one. Mwah.